Hi, everybody. It's Mr. Gray here. Thank you for a great week. It is 2025. Believe it or not, we talked this week in class about how your fifth graders will be sixth graders this year in 2025. And so, as usual, there's a lot going on. I hope everybody had a great winter break and spent time with family. I know we had that time, then we came back to school, and now there's wind and fire. And so, we know people that have been affected by the fires. We had people affected by the wind in our class and others. So, it's a good reminder between winter break and now the weather that, some of the things that are really important are sometimes a lot more than the school stuff. So, having said that, of course, we'll get to the school stuff, but I'm just thankful for all of you and for your support and for your students and to get to be here every day. So, I hope you have a great 2025, and we're hoping to start off really strong and have a great time from now until spring break. And then after spring break, the time goes really, really fast. So of course we have a million things to do as usual. I do want to point out that not this coming week, but the next week, Monday, January 20th and Tuesday, January 21st, there is no school. Both of those days are off of school. And so just keep that in mind. I'll try to remind you this next week, and I'll try to remind the kids as well. But Monday, January 20th is the presidential inauguration. And so we've kind of been following that a little bit. We followed the election and we talked about that, and we'll continue talking about that, but it's useful to at least check in on that. I'm sure we'll talk about it that week in class, but we're studying the United States and the United States government this year. And so to watch that process take place, even if you watch just like a quick highlight of it, I think that's a great thing to do at home on that day, since we're not at school and we can't check in on it. So no school on Monday, January 20th and Tuesday, January 21st. In reading next week, we are doing a historical fiction genre study from now basically until spring break. We're starting off right now. I'm just reading the book Heroes Out Loud. It's by Alan Gratz. It's a World War II historical fiction book focused on the attack on Pearl Harbor and these two kids who are good friends. And that attack really is going to test their friendship. So we'll start with that for going into next week a little bit. And the kids are just listening to me read, and they're taking notes on certain elements of historical fiction. We're really using that as a tool to kind of understand what historical fiction is. In a nutshell, it's a fictional story set in a realistic setting. Sometimes there's real people that actually existed. There's real places, there's real events that happen, but it's a fictional story within that. And then we're going to use that information to kind of study characters and theme and lots of the things that we had studied previously in the year. We're going to move into our novel study, which is going to be Esperanza Rising, which is a historical fiction book set in the Great Depression. And so those will overlap. I'll continue reading Heroes Out Loud, and next week we'll start Esperanza Rising. And so the kids will be able to dive into their own book that we're all reading together and really take in about historical fiction. And then eventually we will start reading in book clubs. The kids will be in little book clubs, historical fiction books that are all centered on the American Revolution, because we're also going to be getting into the American Revolution pretty soon. So it should be really fun. It's going to take us all the way till spring break to do all of those things. And so this is, I think, a time of year that kids really like in reading. In writing, we're doing a couple of short little units before we get on to our next big unit. Right now, we're doing a very quick, kind of fun, creative project. I took a children's book that I read to my son. It's just an ABC book. It's about a construction project called B is for Bulldozer, and it kind of takes a little sentence, basically, for every two letters. So it says, do you see the asphalt for paving the road, the big shiny bulldozer pushing a load? And so it takes that little couplet and it does that 13 times. So there's one little section for every letter. And so the kids had to kind of choose their own topic, not construction, something else. And then they're making their own children's book. It turns out that is a really difficult thing. Children's books are sneakily very difficult to do and to pull off. And so it's really just like a fun little project. There will be a digital element where the kids can kind of publish their book. But if you haven't heard about that, you can check in with them about that project. They should be, by the time you see this, they should be almost or completely finished with the rough draft and maybe have started the digital version. So it's a great thing to check in on. In math, we talked about classifying different polygons and some of the characteristics of different polygons this week. And so next week we'll get into the coordinate plane and we'll put some of those polygons on the coordinate plane. And I think we should take a quiz on both of those things by the end of next week. If not, it'll be early the next week. In social studies, like I said, we're getting into the American Revolution. And so where we're at now in the history of the United States, our focus is that the colonies have kind of formed. We've run up to like the 1750s. And so the colonies have maybe this kind of American identity. And we're having some increased tension between the United States colonies and their priorities and Great Britain and their priorities. And so we're getting into what we call our next unit is the road to revolution. So the seeds of discord and what really caused all the problems leading up to the American Revolution. And it's a really interesting time of year. The kids will have a few different projects to work on over the next few weeks. The second thing we're doing is we're focusing on the United States like now, as in the states. So one of the things the kids have to know in fifth grade is the location of all 50 states and the names of the capitals of every state. And so we're starting that process now. We're doing two things. The kids have a little self-review. There won't be a test on that for a long time, but they're able to kind of practice on their own right now to learn some of the states. And then the second thing we'll do is it's called Great State Project. So we started that this week on Friday, and the kids are going to have a state, and there are several parts of their product. There's a poster, there's an engineering part of their project where they have to actually build something like in a creative way, do something. It doesn't have to be enormously elaborate, but something that represents their state. They also will have like a physical display that they use. And we're not exactly sure how that's going to look, but we'll have a state fair at the end where the kids can show off their different posters of their states. And then the last part about that project, which is the part where you come in, is the kids have to actually call the tourism hotline for their state. That's part of the project. They have to call, if their state is Georgia, they have to call the Georgia hotline and kind of interview them and say, I'm a student in California. I'm trying to learn about your state. What do I need to know? And there's some questions that they have to ask and then take notes on that and incorporate that in their project. However, the rule is they have to complete that phone call with a parent present. So a parent has to be there just in case they get a little stuck or have some questions. And so that is the big thing that they have to do. The kids know that. They got that told to them when they're doing the project, but that's where you come in. You just have to be there while they're on the phone of the tourism hotline. Okay, so there's a lot going on in social studies. In science lab, the kids are going to look at organisms from Antarctica and really like the food chain, like how the food chain works. The kids will work on Wordly Wise number 6. Maybe by the end of the week, hopefully, we'll take the quiz for Wordly Wise. Then we'll be done with Wordly Wise. We'll move on to our next language unit. The kids will do buddies. And also, before spring break, the kids will take their physical fitness tests. Every fifth grader in California takes the physical fitness tests. There are push-ups and sit-ups. There's a flexibility test and a couple other things. And then, of course, the mile run. So about every week or two, we'll do some practice for all those things. They're familiar with that, leading up to in March actually doing the tests. And so it's not something that goes like for a grade. It's just something that all the schools and teachers in California have to report. And the state kind of looks at the data in general to make sure kids are hopefully fit and healthy. So like I said, a lot going on. As always, please let me know about any questions. I hope you guys had a fantastic break and a great start to the new year. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.